Okay,
Hey,
and we
there we are.
are live. What's up, Luke?
How's it going, my man?
It's going well. How are things going with you?
Amazing. Happy Friday. We are off to the races. School's out, and time to jumble up the schedule a little bit more.
School's out for the year for you, or just for the Memorial
Yep,
Weekend?
for the year.
For the year. Wow. We still haven't. We still have a few weeks here in California.
I remember that kind of being the case growing up myself. I don't remember getting out,
Yeah.
almost mid-May.
Actually, it makes sense because once you hit that Memorial Day and it's a
Right.
long weekend, and it's the end of May. I think we
Yeah.
might have a few weeks left of school. I think we get out maybe June 6th. That comes to mind, so it's early June.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm pretty certain of it because, uh, we're going on a trip shortly thereafter. So,
Right.
so
I
that's
mean, in my mind, it makes sense. I mean, it seems like a good time to shift gears for sure. Um, but then, and I think it's like, when we go back, I always remember going back. Like, what is it? What's the holiday like? Beginning of September. Um,
Labor Day.
there's
Am I in the
something
wrong?
now. Yeah,
I'm in the wrong holiday. Here, let's just look at that. Major holiday. End of
there's something
September.
in September, beginning of September. Maybe
Labor
end
Day.
of August. Labor
Yeah,
Day.
yeah. I
Okay.
said Labor
Yeah.
Day, and then I started questioning myself.
Yeah.
I'm like, am
And
I
then
in the right month?
I'm punching. I was like, that doesn't. It seems like, yeah. I always remember. I mean, it seems like that was a good, back in the yeah, Labor Day, like after school starting after Labor Day. But I think we start like mid August. Um.
Wow. Well, look, that's crazy. Well, it's not crazy. It happens every single year.
Right.
So I think what I wanted to talk to you about today that's really been on my mind is the change in the real estate market where we're at right now because
Mm-hmm.
it is going crazy. In fact, I'm going to share my screen with you. This is that Reventure app that
Yeah.
I like to use. And the only state in the nation, this is inventory, year over year inventory growth. The only state in the nation who has has decreased inventory is North Dakota. In April 2024, they did 1677 listings, and now they're at 1633, minus 2.5%. But if you look at everywhere else, things are exploding. California's 51%, Florida's 35%, the state of Texas is 30%. Like every other place is double digits
So
and
increase in listings.
increase in listings.
Okay.
And when you start zooming in on the state, let me go into
Okay, so we have an increase in listings, but we also have the lowest volume,
what do you mean lowest volume?
like the lowest number of transactions since like
Yes.
2008.
Yeah, the number of sales. So, what this is indicating is a transitioning market, changing market, whatever you want to call it. It's showing that, things are getting disconnected,
Yeah.
especially in Florida, especially in Texas, especially, in California. If I look at where I live, let me go back to that screen. If I go back to where I live, let's just go by zip code.
So we have increased listings, low volume,
Oops, that's not it.
which means at the end of the day, people just can't afford properties, right?
So you look at, this is the home value growth. So we want to go into market trends and sales inventory growth. So you
Man,
look
this is
at my
that's
zip
good
code
data.
of 92618. which, as you know, that's a large portion of Irvine, uh,
Yeah.
ultimate suburbia, great area. 343.8% increase in inventory year over year. It's gone from,
Wow.
it's at, and that's only 218.
Right.
So I think I can look in and see where we were at. Let's look what this says. So we went from 49 units in April of 24 to 218. That's a lot.
Dang.
That's a
Yeah.
lot, especially when you look at the average sales price of 1.6 million.
Yeah.
Like that's huge. Now you look over here in 2020. Look how much prices have increased. Um, $650,000 increase just in since 2020. 2019 would be a better assessment because that's pre-COVID. So you saw it go down a little bit, but then it went, pew, right there. You like my sound effects? Pew.
Yeah. um, what what do you think's driving the increase in listings so much?
So I think there's a lot of things here. I think there's a lot of things in play. Number one is when we look at a traditional market, when rates go up, prices typically come down.
Mm-hmm.
And the inverse is true too. When rates go down, prices typically go up. However, what a lot of people are not focusing on is affordability.
Yeah.
For instance, if somebody has a housing expense or a housing budget of say $5,000, I know that's a lot for I think the nation, but it's an even number for me.
Yeah.
Let's say it's $5,000. Well, rates are going to go up and prices are going to come down and equilibrate, if that's a word, to $5,000. Conversely, if rates come down and prices go up, it's also going to match that $5,000 range
Right.
over time. When we start looking at the national data, though, and we start looking at wages, we're decreasing.
Right.
The last thing that I looked at was compared to 2019 to 2024, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and the wages have decreased by, if I remember correctly, 0.7%, so nearly a point, which doesn't seem like a big deal until it's on the grand scheme of things. So you
Right.
have rising inflation, a stagnating economy, rising costs of goods, interest rates are historic highs, home prices are historic highs, defaults are starting to go up, not massively in these major markets, but if you remember back when we were right there pre 2008,
Yeah.
it slowly rolled, and then it just went
Right.
pow. So my talk track that I'm having with agents, and this kind of relates into what you and I often talk about, is lead generation solves all problems.
Right.
There has never been in my career in real estate an easy market. There's always something hard. It's hard when homes are selling off the shelf really quick. It's hard when they're not. The hardest of those markets is a flat market when you're out there and the wind's not blowing
Right.
and nothing's moving no matter what you do. That's probably the hardest, the most scary market. That was the only time I featured one of those was like in the early 2000s. And when I experienced something like that right after the .com, that was like right into my career. The nice thing about
Yeah.
that is that I was new into the industry. I didn't know what I didn't know, and so it didn't
Right.
affect me.
Man, it's so funny that you mentioned that because like I'll have like over the past couple years, um, the people that I connect with that are new, like they don't know any different, and they're just jumping into things, getting after it, like making it work. Whereas you have the people who came off of like 2020, 2021 that were just flush with volume and transactions where they're like, woe is me, the sky is falling.
Yeah.
So those two different like, vantage points is such a material difference at the end of the day.
One of the other things that's really mind-boggling to me is, again, you and I are really a broken record, is the overemphasis on traditional activities that the data shows that is not attractive to the consumer, i.e., cold
Right.
calling, cold door knocking, showing up unannounced at somebody's house. The data shows that that behavior is not welcome. It will work, but it's not welcome. And the other thing that's mind-boggling to me is the adoption of people thinking that that's gospel, that there's not a better way. Some people actually think that the social media strategies and digital strategies are still somewhat irrelevant, maybe a waste of time. And yet when you look at some of these top producing real estate agents and mortgage officers, typically they're either A, they've been in the business a really, really long time and have a
Yeah.
sphere of influence, or B, if they haven't, they have a very robust digital profile, digital strategy that makes them the go-to expert. The really great
Right.
ones have both.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The the folks that I, I I think there's like a huge disconnect a lot of times where you have like the folks that are you see them where they're at now and they've put in decades of work in their business, and what got them to be where they're at, they are still doing that I mean just massive amounts of volume and consistency. But they have that model, what got them to where they're at, and you see the like newer folks that are coming in and they see that they did that, but it's a completely different landscape now. um, so it's I think there's a pretty big challenge there for a lot of folks being able to like discern, like, okay, well, what got them there isn't going to get me there, but they still see it like right there in their face. So like, well, these are the people that are crushing it. You're like, well, yeah, because it got started back in 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah. And when you started 20, 30 years ago, you have a database of people that know you, like you, and trust you. And
Right.
so, but I think that too is starting to change. I think that a lot of these real estate agents are aging out. And if they're not aging out, then their clientele is typically aging out. And the data is showing that 100% of all buyers and sellers use the internet as a tool. We
Yeah.
also know that there's latency of what sellers and buyers do before they're actually ready to speak with an agent, and they're doing a tremendous amount of online research. So there's an
Right.
opportunity to really put yourself in front of these potential consumers and win business just by creating content.
Yeah.
I am always actively looking to, I'm no different than anyone else. I Google people before I actually call and actually speak with them, and um, before before I invite them to be a speaker or something,
Yeah.
and anything else. And it's interesting how many people, when you Google them, you don't have any YouTube videos coming up. You don't have any offers coming up as far as download my free report. You see the LinkedIn, you see the Facebook business page, you see these high level profiles, but they're not really
Hmm.
optimized to generate any type of leads or to provide information about yourself to convert those leads into
Yeah.
future business. It's crazy.
Yeah, for sure. It's like you're it blows me away that people don't take time to Google themselves and see what comes up and optimize for that.
I think I think in my opinion, most people don't know what they don't know. Well, actually,
Yeah.
that's kind of an income. That's yeah. I think all people don't know what they don't know. Not most people. I think that people understand that there might be a challenge, there might be a problem, there might be something else they can do. But
Yeah.
and that's where you come in, and that's where I come in. Is you have to be able to fundamentally teach them and provide them a step by step system to do it. But what's interesting with that, going back to they don't know what they don't know,
Yeah.
is they might just be oblivious. They understand that there might potentially be something different that they can do, but
Hmm.
they're oblivious to what can happen. I had this comment yesterday. I was on a group meeting and they were talking about all these different things with, I'm a very simple person. Lead generation, lead skill development to convert those leads. That should be the underlying focus of everybody. Lead generate, find people who are looking to buy or sell in the next 90 days and grow
Yeah.
your database for future people who want to buy and sell in the next 90 days. Very simple.
Yeah.
And increase your skills so you don't say things too stupid that would turn someone away that could attract them to work with you. But we were talking about, of course, technology, and artificial intelligence is by far the most catchphrase, most important thing that's changing everything. But I said it's interesting how heavy we're going in on that simply because in my experience, I still get a lot of questions in regards to how to use hashtags in social media. I don't think people know how to use or understand the difference between organic and search. I don't think they understand, organic and paid. They don't
Right.
understand the difference between social and search. And they're not utilizing that even to a small degree. And yet, AI is meant to build upon that and just make everything tremendously easier. So I think that for the most part, your clientele, my clientele, the people that we would probably attract, most of them, their highest and best use for AI is just asking it questions and make general content, which is
Right.
which is a huge time saver.
Yeah.
But there's so much more that these agentic models. I don't know if you know this, but Make.com has a beta thing in test that you're building out customer service reps.
Right.
They actually have a built-in
Yeah.
agentic. For those watching, that's actually having an agent. So you actually have your own assistant to do that.
Yeah. They're poised. Them Zapier, like they're because of all of their integrations that they have natively. I think they're poised really well to be able to tap into that. Whereas some of these like just standalone stuff is they don't have that built-in infrastructure and client base. So it's could be really awesome. More so than that, down that same thought process and rabbit hole type of an approach. And this is probably something that is it working in the backgrounds. But if Apple was to come out with something like the amount of data and access that they have, I mean, I'm just I just it's a matter of time before I think that they become a player in that field as well.
Yeah, I think Apple needs to do something. I just saw on the news that Altman of ChatGPT, he
Hmm.
just made a deal, inked a partnership deal with the guy behind the creation of the iPad, the iPhone. They're Apple's major creator. I forget
Yeah.
what the company's name. I just saw that in the news in the last day or two. So I think that they're going to have to do something. Look, I don't want to get rid of Apple, but you know what? I didn't want to get rid of BlackBerry back when that was the hot thing too that moved over to Apple. So
Right.
it's possible that I would abandon the whole Mac ecosystem. And I'm pretty embedded though with Mac, with
Yeah.
my laptop, my watch, my phone, my AirPods. Like I don't. The only thing I don't have are the 3D goggles
Goggles.
and the Pro the massive, pro
Yeah.
ones because I have my earbuds. But I do intend to. I haven't found a use case what I would use. We have an Oculus, so we use that for gaming. Until they get things that are smaller, and it provides you maybe with augmented reality
Yeah.
within like regular glasses, which I genuinely feel is we're probably on the cusp of getting something
Right.
like that. Um, then I probably won't do anything, or switch from the Apple ecosystem.
Yeah, it took me the longest time to switch over to MacBook. And I clutched onto the PC for entirely way too long, but as soon as I made that shift, I was like, oh man, this is just so much more agreeable.
Oh,
Um,
it's such a better user experience by far.
and being able to uh, have everything sync with my phone. Yeah, I I could not imagine um, changing. That's, geez, talk about customer retention. You just the pain of trying to switch. That's they got me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm going back to the agent comment. I think that at least from my talk track with them, they're really going to have only a few different options. Number one is we're going to have fewer homes selling. We're going to have
Right.
we're clearly seeing an increase in inventory, and we're clearly seeing a affordability issue because homes aren't selling. So either A, rates are going to have to come down, which I don't think is going to happen. I think it's clear that even though the Fed isn't saying all of this, they clearly see a problem here from my point
Right.
of view. Or B, prices are going to have to start coming down. I don't think either one of those is bad. I think that the way that people label certain things as negative and positive,
Yeah.
it's irrelevant because your perception is your reality. You and I proved that during the Great Recession that there's no such thing as a bad market. There's just your perception of a bad market because we did very, very, very well. In fact,
Yeah.
on some level, I'm pretty excited for an adjustment in the market because you and I have firsthand experience knowing that that's where the opportunity lies.
Yeah. For sure.
And
Abs-
but anyways, go ahead.
No, no, you're good.
So
It was a
so
good
so anyways,
market for
look,
me.
they're gonna agents are gonna have to work more, work harder, grind harder, like what a lot of people are typically saying that they have to do, or they're going to have to get out of their comfort zone and start learning how to do digital marketing, both organic and paid. They're going to learn how to generate these leads. They have to increase their skill set. They have to increase their skill set because when the market's easy, when the demand is high, hey,
Yeah.
this is what I have. This is the price. Go for it. You
Right.
really have to focus on challenges. They have to up their skills because income's going to be an issue. There's going to be challenges. It's just going to be it's going to be a environment even right now that's ripe for the person who's the go-getter and has the knowledge and the experience behind it. It's ripe for them. But you've got to adjust.
Yeah. Skills, 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 man. It's something that just gets more and more prevalent, and I just the what I almost take for granted and like assume is like I don't think real estate and mortgage people realize they are in sales. Like so many of them, it baffles me that like they're invest almost no effort in getting better at sales. It's mind-boggling.
Well, they didn't have to. And I think that when you don't have to, when things are just selling off the hook, remember when rates are low, demand goes up. And so when you get all that demand, then sales skills aren't as important. When the market turns into a different direction, again, not putting any type of negative or positive connotation to it, but when
Yeah.
it turns, the value of experience, the value, the need for sales skills now increases exponentially because of the fact that you have to, you really have to understand what the challenges are, A, of the consumer, and B, what are their goals, what's their current situation, and it's going to be responsible for this mortgage professional and this real estate professional to understand how to solve that problem. Now, they have their own problems, I think, that they have to solve for, and that
Yeah.
is to make sure that any potential consumer knows that they exist on planet Earth, because that's the biggest problem. Is there might you and I might be the most qualified person to help somebody to do whatever, but if that person has zero idea that we exist, we're not getting anything. So I think a lot of them are going to have to really focus on how do they beat obscurity, and that's issue number one.
Well, yeah, you're. I love your. If they don't know you, there's 100% chance they can't do business with you. So
Yeah.
yes, absolutely, you have the obscurity, but just the concept that you just shared and touched on of like solving somebody's problem. I don't even. There's so many people that don't even have. You and I take that stuff for granted. Like that's a lot of times not even a general concept in their process. Like you're here, you want this, there's a gap, what's stopping you from achieving that? How do I help you solve that problem? Like that, the whole concept of that is and like you said, like in a good market you have these order takers, but when things shift, like yeah, so I mean it's painful to hear some of the, I mean, because within our software we get to be able to record and listen to conversations, and it hurts.
Yeah.
Like it's awesome when you hear when somebody's good and they got it and they like it clicks, and obviously they're you know where they're at because of that. But man, it's that's just something that's become more and more prevalent to me, that like, man, if people would buy, invest money in, I mean, there's a lot of people that invest money in sales stuff, not real estate mortgage people. Nobody wants to be told that they suck at sales.
Well, nobody thinks that they do, but
Right. That's the problem.
that's the great thing about sales, is that you are directly compensated based on the quality of your skill set.
Yeah.
Here, I pulled this up while you were looking. Hey, are you using Grok or ChatGPT more, or Gemini,
Uh,
or Copilot,
chat.
or
Yeah. Mostly still chat GBT's my um, daily use.
okay?
I'll consistently try, testing stuff out and using stuff, but I just seem to keep coming back to ChatGPT as my
So
default.
I have both. I have Super Grok and I have
Mhm.
the ChatGPT Pro, and I'm really focusing on. I want to go all in more on Grok,
Yeah,
simply because of, I do think it's a superior model based on computation power, and the fact that it
yeah,
dials into real time data with the X platform and the web. That's good. Now, ChatGPT, they do have a head start as far as API integration and things, but for what I use it for, I'm waiting to
right,
see. Grok 3.5 is supposed to be released this month, and that's supposed to come in with first person reasoning, which is
mhm,
which I didn't know what that was. And basically, when I looked it up, it has the ability to think as opposed to find. So it can
right,
take all the information and then provide you with an independent information, as opposed to just scouring and data
right.
analytics. So That's how I understand it. But I think that's going to be crazy. Anyways, I used Grok to do this. I'll share my screen. So the question was, how many homes are forecast to sell in 2024? And it says about 4.04 million existing homes were sold in, oh, I should say in 2025. Okay. How many homes are forecasted to sell in 2025? I'm living in the past. Mortgage Bankers Association, no specific forecast, nothing from the Federal Reserve. Zillow says 4.3, Redfin says 4.1 to 4.4. New homes on the market, 700, so total about 4.8 to 5 million. Now, pre-COVID, they were like, how many sold in 2019? I think it was 6.3 or something like that. Now, this is the year prior to COVID. Okay, about 6 million. So I was a little off. So we have about a third, 33% decline in home selling. And so that's kind of a big deal. And these are estimates, which means if we just look at these as factual and we're saying, okay, that's going to happen, that means if somebody just does the same thing over the next 12 months that they did the prior 12 months, their business is going to be off by a third.
Right.
Which means they're either going to have to increase their efforts by 33% just to break even. If they want to be profitable by 20%, they're going to have to increase their efforts by 53%. Now, the problem with that is that there's only so many days in a week and hours in a day. So increasing the number of hours is probably not viable. So they're going to have to increase their efficiencies. They're going to have to increase their lead generation on different modalities. They're going to have to change their talk track. Otherwise, they're hosed.
Yep.
I don't know any other way to put it.
No, there isn't. Oop, saw the time.
Yeah, okay. Let's
There
get
you
out
go.
of here. It's always great. I'll see you next week.
Awesome. Rock and roll, my man.